Well, hello, everyone. This is Singinlisa welcoming you back to another episode of the Meaningful Conversations podcast. Of course, we're continuing to honor women as Women's History Month continues. And I'm telling you, this has been phenomenal and exciting to meet all of these wonderful women and all of the contributions that they are making to their community and to the world. And of course, you see before me another beautiful woman who will be sharing her story with you and her journey. And we're very excited to welcome another woman who will bring you inspiration, motivation, and impact. This is none other than PAM SHERBIA, and she knows very well the benefits of trusting in God. For the adversities that have entered her life, it has been cancer that has touched her life directly and indirectly in the lives of her immediate family as well, including two sisters, so many times. But she's never lost faith and hope of the magnificent God that she serves. She's a two-time cancer survivor, overcomer, I want to be correct, who strongly believes that her journeys were never hers to claim. God has used her as a vessel, one that he knew he could trust and believe. And of course, beyond a shadow of a doubt, she holds God up high. And she lets everyone know that her journey is here for others to see the manifestation of his glory. She is a dedicated member of the Janet Hall Foundation for Breast Cancer Awareness, and that is also known as Pampering Pink Survivors. We're going to get into that conversation as well. But most importantly, of all that she is doing, she is an avid writer, a poet, a speaker, and editor of Living at Home, which is a memoir by Linnell Dowling, and a contributing editor of True Friends, The Story of God and Abraham by Reverend Darlene James. She's also the author of her recently published book entitled Embracing in His Grace. This is her journey with breast cancer, and we're excited to talk to Pam about that book and all that God is doing in her life, as she's full of inspiration and encouragement. So Pam, welcome, and thank you so much for joining me today. How are you?
I am doing wonderful.
That's always good to say. Yeah, after all that you have been through, what a blessing to say those words, that you are doing well.
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
And it's truly a blessing.
Absolutely. Well, we're excited to have you here so that you can continue to share and pour into other women and other people watching who always benefit from another dose of encouragement. And so as you have shared your journey, all about how God has delivered you and blessed you and brought you on the other side of healing, what was it like in the beginning for you when this journey began?
Well, Pam was involved in a lot of things. I used to be a mentor for previously incarcerated persons in Harrisonburg, Virginia. Pam has always written, even though I didn't recognize how powerful the things that God had given me to write. Didn't realize at the time that it was a gift. I just did it. It just came naturally. But always quiet. Even though I spoke at different organizations, different churches, I still had that shyness about me until someone told me that it's okay to feel a little nervous before you get up to speak. That was a good thing. So that was a blessing to know that. Mm-hmm. I couldn't understand why. I was still getting butterflies, anytime it was time for me to speak. But I guess the basic thing is that I always enjoyed helping people.
Yeah.
Any way that I could. Mm-hmm. That was my main thing, being able to help someone else.
Yes. How were you feeling when you started to realize that something different was going on in your body?
I won't say it was frightening. I was concerned. Had no idea that I would ever hear the words myself, you have cancer. It was quite a journey for me getting to that point of finding out exactly what it was. Sometimes we try to self-diagnose ourselves. I can't say that I went in that direction, but I knew one thing for sure, that was that God was trying to get my attention and that something was actually going on inside my body.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to find out exactly what it was.
Yes. Well, you said something very key. You had to find out what it was. I'm hearing a lot at times for various reasons that once someone eventually gets to a doctor, they sometimes are not seeking a second opinion or another source to verify what exactly may be going on, to be sure that it's accurate information, and then to find out exactly if the treatment being offered is the best treatment that will work for you. And so it's great to hear that you did seek to find out what was going on, because of course we need answers, and that leads to solutions. And so that experience in getting to the doctor, finding out what you were told, led then to what? What were the steps that you took place?
Well, let's take a pause right quick and back it up a little bit.
Okay.
It wasn't like I went to one doctor or two doctors.
Correct.
I went to almost 5 doctors before I actually got someone to believe that something was actually wrong.
Wow.
The thing about it is that women, we know when something is not correct in our bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Having someone tell me, well, it's just a muscle spasm or this, that, and the other, I just wasn't satisfied with it. Mm-hmm. And it didn't stop with me there. You'll find a lot of situations where the patient will accept what the doctor says. Mm-hmm. That didn't rest very well in my soul.
Yeah.
It was not well at all.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why I love that hymn. It is well with my soul. Well, It didn't rest well. And I decided that I was going to stay on that track of finding someone, number one, who would listen to me. And number two, finding someone who would really try to find out what was going on with me. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to accept something to just cover up, like they give you pills. Here, just take this for maybe a week or two and you should feel better. No, I didn't want the situation to be masked. I needed to find out exactly what was going on.
Yes. And it's so important. So I'm glad that you shared that, because again, many people, or women in particular, may just accept the first thing. And because the news may be devastating, or it's not the accurate news, you don't take it as seriously as it could be. And then I've even recently, someone I believe was in the news who was misdiagnosed, and it ultimately led to their demise, unfortunately, because it had been overlooked for over a year. And so sometimes things can really extend longer than they need to, especially if correct treatment isn't given. So as you continue through that journey, then what was the process like for you once it was confirmed that you had cancer?
Once it was confirmed, just hearing the words "you have cancer" can be very frightening.
Yes.
At that point, all I wanted to do was get rid of this thing that didn't belong inside my body. I just wanted it out.
Yeah.
When they came up with the plan, what they were going to do, and they talked to me about it, that I was going to have a lupectomy. I was diagnosed with DCIS, ductal carcinoma in situ, where the cancer was just basically in one breast and in the duct area. So all they had to basically do is go in and clean out the duct area to get all the cancer cells out. Follow up after that entailed me meeting with the radiologist. And I remember meeting with him, and every question he asked me, I gave him my answer off the top of my head. I could tell you the dates that I had this test done, that test done. Every answer I gave him, he flipped through my files and folded the page. After about the third question, I got a little concerned, because it was obvious that either he had not prepared to see me. This was his first time seeing my files, with the questions he asked and with the folding of the pages. When he located the answer that I gave him, and to have someone say, you meet with them on a Friday, and they said, well, we're going to start radiation on a Monday. And I remember my sister appearing in that room saying, sister, don't let them do to you what they did to me. And because she went through a process, she started off with chemo, she had surgery, she had radiation. And then they turned back and she ended up having radiation for the second time. When my response was no, of course the doctor got concerned. My son was there with me. He was concerned. Having his aunt pass away like 3 years before I was actually diagnosed, I'm sure in his heart he felt that his mom was going to be gone soon. But when I realized me meeting with him on that Friday, and we only have Saturday, Sunday, and then the following day was Monday, was when I was scheduled to have radiation, that concerned me. Here you wasn't prepared. You have not really looked at my files, but you already made the recommendation that radiation was in order. I'm glad that my sister's spirit appeared.
Yes.
And I always say that God has different ways of getting messages to us. And I felt like from the onstart, having this pain was his way of trying to get my attention. Sometimes we quick to put our trust in man, put our trust in our doctors, more than we trust God.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that is a definite way that he will get in touch with you and reach you in places that are really sensitive in your life, and especially people who have gone through some of the areas that you're getting ready to experience. And so when you paid attention to those signs, you continued to see where that paid off and where that was a direct communication to you, because every step that you continued to take opened up the right direction for you to follow. So after you experienced that with the doctor and you said no and let's wait, then what were your follow-up steps?
Well, even before the follow-up steps started, I reached out to another doctor at another facility, and they put me in touch with a doctor there. And I remember talking to this young lady and explaining what I had just gone through. And her first response was, oh my God, we got to get you set up because you need to start radiation right away. And I'm like, wait a minute. I'm telling her what just took place.
Yeah.
She has not seen me.
Yes.
Has not even received my files. But all of a sudden you're ready to start radiation. And I just told her thanks, but no thanks. I would just seek another opinion. Of course, from the first doctor, I got many, many calls out of concern, like, what are you doing? This is the best doctor. He might be the best doctor. I wasn't challenging whether or not he was best, but I wanted the best for my life.
Yes.
That's what was important to me.
Yeah, because it's
I saw fit to try to get my attention, to forewarn me that something was going on. Then I want to be obedient and show him that I deserve this life that he's given me.
Yes. Yes. Wonderful. Well, I know that in this walk, it is very important to be obedient and very important to listen and be sensitive to what is going on in all of the steps, because this is a very serious process, especially when you hear twice already, let's start radiation, let's start a procedure, let's have an operation. So it things were moving rapidly, but it was beneficial to you to take your time to be very clear on everything that needed to take place. And so you said in the beginning that you ultimately went to 5 different doctors. What was your thought process after this second experience, and then you moved on to the third one? No, when you said you saw 5 doctors, was that combining both?
I went back to my surgeon.
Okay.
And because she was concerned about my concerns when she found out I rejected radiation. And thank God for that she at least listened to me.
Yeah.
And she decided, I'm going to send your report to another pathologist so that they can look at it and see what their findings are. When she did that, she got back to me and she indicated that the second pathologist said that the radiologist didn't have enough evidence to warrant me going through radiation.
Wow.
And he recommended that they go back in, do another lumpectomy, go back in, but to go deeper to make sure that they removed all the cancer cells.
Okay.
Now, when you think back, how many people take the first recommendation that's given them?
Right.
If they had only listened, some of them might still be here today.
Correct. Because ultimately what she suggested is to go deeper than what was first suggested, which would give a more complete look and a complete result.
Exactly.
From them getting everything out, going deeper.
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. So ultimately that is the procedure that helped to remove everything.
Yes.
And then, so what is the follow-up treatment looking like now after you had that done?
Well, right after that, they just put me on a medication, a Remedex, and they informed me that if I can make it till 5 years, chances are the cancer would not return.
Okay.
But then I had problems with a Remedex. And see, I'm one of those people, if I'm on medication, I would jot down in a little book.
Yeah.
If I had any problems that day, when I took XYZ, what were the symptoms or the issues that I had? And I noticed that this medication was causing so much other pain. Then it got to the point where one day it was like I was paralyzed. I actually could not move.
Wow.
And when I contacted my oncologist and said, I'm having some issues with this medication, so I stopped taking it, the 3 or 4 days that I stopped taking it, I realized that I didn't have those symptoms. And he said, oh my God, you have to get back on it right away. It cannot be out of your system for that long. And I'm like, but this is what's happening to me. So I tried taking the medication again. The same thing happened. So I had to stop taking it. But a lot of people don't pay attention to medication that's given.
Yes.
The symptoms that they receive. Sometimes they won't even think about calling the doctor back and say, I'm having this issue with this particular medication. And they'll continue taking it thinking that that's the best route to go.
Yeah.
But we know our bodies, and we know when something that we eat, if you're eating something and you have a reaction, chances are you're not going to eat that anymore. Right? And it should be the same thing when a doctor puts you on medication. You have to pay attention to whatever symptoms that you might be having.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe bring it to their attention. Make them do something, either recommend something else.
Yes.
But you don't just continue taking something that's working against you.
Yeah, it sounds like you were really actively participating in your care, and that it was both sides, not just coming from the doctor, but you were a part of that because you were able to identify symptoms and how you felt. And that was important in the treatment you received because it either caused them to, did you receive new medication as a result of that? Of stopping?
Well, we did stop that medication, and I had some options to take something else.
Okay.
But when I researched the side effects for those, it was scary. I remember just breaking down and crying because I'm like, the side effects was worse than what I was going through.
Yeah. Oh.
So I didn't want to put something else in my body that was going to steadily work against me.
Yes. Yeah. Were one of the side effects the typical loss of hair and weakness? Did you experience that?
Well, this is going to sound strange.
Okay.
I started losing my hair before I even knew I had cancer. And I remember going to the hairdresser, and my hairdresser said, Pam, do you realize that your hair's coming out? And I said, no, I had noticed it coming out. Mm-hmm. And she said, yeah, it's coming out a whole lot more. So when I brought that to the doctor's attention after being diagnosed with cancer, they said, impossible. We never heard of anything happening like that. And I remember one day I was in the pharmacies picking up a prescription, and I just started talking to this young lady. And she shared with me that she was going through cancer. And she said, my hair started coming out before I even knew that I had cancer, before I even started chemo. And I said to her, my hair started coming out before I knew, but the doctor told me that they had never heard of any such thing. For me, it was like everybody's situation is different.
Yeah.
Everybody's situation is different.
Right.
Everybody's body is different.
Yeah.
I could have a cancer diagnosis and you could have a cancer diagnosis, but we should not be treated the same way because it doesn't affect us the same way.
Yes. Yeah.
But I think during that time, everybody was treated basically the same way. Chemo, radiation.
Yeah.
Chemo, radiation.
Right. And was the discussion ever brought up about how to manage your care in addition to the medication, regarding your health and your nutrition, what to eat, types of things like that?
Not during my first journey.
Okay.
I had outside sources that I researched things to find out what I should be eating, what I should be doing. My second journey was completely different because I did have access to that.
Okay.
I didn't have to do anything on my own.
Yes.
But not during the first journey at all.
Okay.
I believe at that particular time that just wasn't available. They didn't look at it as being something important.
Yeah.
Let me just put it that way.
Take us from once you were treated and things were going well. How much time in between the first and second?
It was about 4 years and 7 months to be exact.
Right near the 5-year mark.
Yeah, I didn't quite make it
to
the 5-year mark. And that journey began with me exercising one day and hearing God speak to me, asking me this question: whose report are you going to believe? Mine's or theirs, because you're not all right. Um, I could not really say that to a doctor because then they would have thought that I was losing my mind, probably. But I did call my surgeon right away and asked, could I come in? I needed to see her. And she said, that I was fine. She had my report out looking at it. She was looking at the film. She was also looking at reading the report that the doctor had sent her. And she said, you're fine. And I'm like, no, I'm not fine. But I still couldn't tell her that, hey, I just asked me a question. Because I didn't know whether or not she was a believer. I didn't know whether or not she was on a Christian journey. And it came down to, who are you going to believe?
Yeah.
And for me, it's going to always be God. It's going to always be.
Yeah.
I have to trust him no matter what.
Yeah.
He could have not tried to get my attention, and instead of them catching the cancer the first time at stage 0, it could have been far beyond that, which happens to a lot of women when they don't pay attention to their bodies, when they don't try to seek medical help to try to find out what's going on. Sometimes they don't discover it until they're at maybe stage 3 or 4.
Yeah. Yeah. And that makes it much more challenging to treat. And yeah, a lot of things have to become much more aggressive at that point to try to, get ahead of it. And so, well, as you received the second diagnosis and you started treatment after it was confirmed, was it the same type of cancer or?
Well, when it was confirmed, they said it was a new cancer. It wasn't like the cancer came back, like you hear people say. It wasn't anything like that. So here I'm dealing with something different than the first diagnosis. And then finding out that this second diagnosis, they considered a very invasive type cancer. It had the tendency of spreading to some other part of my body. It was something that needed to be addressed right away. They had come up with a plan that I would have surgery, that I would need radiation after this one. They did the biopsy, and the day that they did the biopsy, I remember telling the nurse that I was allergic to latex. So when she put the IV in my arm, I did not want her to put latex tape. And that's exactly what she used. So when my arm started itching and went to a burning stage, I asked her, was that tape latex? She said, that's all I had. I just told you that I'm allergic to latex, and showed her the scar that I had when I discovered that I was allergic to latex. So it didn't matter. She said, well, we have to take you to the other side to do this procedure. I didn't care at that point. Take me wherever you need to take me, but take this latex tape off of me.
My goodness.
So they did. But when everything was over and my son got me home, he asked me, he said, what is that that's on your arm? And I'm thinking, is the band showing that I had been to the hospital? And I said, oh, I'm going to leave that on because at least for the next 24, 48 hours to see how things go, just in case I have to go back. I don't have to go through the whole procedure of it. All they have to do is scan it, and they have everything right there. And he said, no, I'm not talking about that. And I'm like, what are you talking about? So I happened to look at my arm, and lo and behold, I still got the IV. I'm at home, but I still got the IV in my arm.
The IV?
The actual IV is still in my arm.
Oh my!
And I guess I hadn't noticed it before because I was still kind of groggy and the medication hadn't completely worn off. When I called them, and told and asked, why do I have the ID still in my arm? Do I have to come back or something like that? And they said, no. They said, is someone with you? And I said, yes, my son. And they said, well, we can tell him how to take it out. So my son is standing there. He doesn't hear this conversation, but I'm looking at him because my son is huge, right? At that time, maybe he was weighing 250, maybe 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And I just could not believe that they actually wanted me to let him take this idea out of my arm. And you know how you imagine things, and I had this flash before my eyes that I could visualize him pulling the IV out, but then I also see all of my veins coming out, my flesh, the whole works. And I'm like, no. Okay. So then my son says, hang up, tell him we're on our way back. So instead of going directly to the hospital, I stopped at a medical facility that was closer to my home and told him I had just had a biopsy, blah, blah, blah. And they had someone else come in the room to examine. The doctor came in and then they left and somebody else came. By the time the third person came in, I'm like, okay, what's the issue? You know, you can't remove it or you don't want to remove it. Then I realized it was an issue for them because if something happened, they didn't want to be liable for it. Right. So I had to end up going back to the original place is what I did. When I was leaving there, God put in my spirit to contact this other place to get a second opinion. And that's what I did. I contacted them. They were in Philadelphia at the time and told them that I needed to get a second opinion. I was diagnosed with cancer, breast cancer. It was Paget's disease. And they asked me what was I doing then? I said, I just left the hospital. They had to remove the ID that they left in my arm. And they said, you calling us? And I'm like, yes. You know, I talked to one of your employees like years ago who had spoken highly of you guys. And at the time I didn't meet them, but God put in my spirit to contact you all. So I did. I made arrangements to go out there, you know, to get a second opinion. The one thing I liked about going to the Cancer Treatment Center is that I loved the place from the very beginning, from the moment the limousine driver picked us up, prayed for us, asked me, did I have faith? And I said, yes. He said, well, if you have faith, we have everything else you need. I knew right then that this place had to be Christ-centered, you know?
Yeah.
And they scheduled me. I think I was out there for 3 or 4 days. They scheduled me to even meet with Pastorial care. That was a part of the entire package, even though I met with my primary care doctor in the beginning. And they scheduled it so that I could meet with everybody that was on their team. Pastoral care was very good. At that time, you know, you're not thinking that you really need this.
Right.
But it's all a part of the healing. And even after I decided, talking to my sister and my son, well, you know what? This is a place that I think I want to go and have surgery, treatment, whatever I have to do. And they were comfortable because they loved the place. They loved how I was being treated and how they were being treated. But even after I made the decision that, okay, I want to come here, it was like, not so fast. But when you came here, you were angry. You were angry with your doctors because what they had put you through. And they said, part of going through cancer is that not only do you have to be physically in the right place, but you need to be spiritually in the right place.
Yes.
That you can't do this if you're still holding anger
Mm.
in your heart against your doctor.
Wow. That was really key.
Yeah, that was powerful. And it made me think, and I'm like, you know what? The way I look at this, I'm not really angry with him
Mm.
because he really did me a favor. If he had not done what he had done and the things that was said to me during that process, I probably would have never come to this place.
Yes.
So I felt in my heart that I had really forgiven him
Mm.
because he did me a favor. He pushed me to be somewhere that I really needed to be and
Yeah.
where God wanted me to be.
Mm-hmm.
So how could I be angry with him anymore?
Yeah. And I'm sure that was very key into the whole process of healing, like you said,
It was.
because it makes a difference how you're
Mhm.
handling everything, your stress and your emotions and your calmness, your peace,
Mhm.
because this is not an overnight journey. This
No,
is
it's not.
day to day to day. So what was it like for you and your family? What type of support system did you have as you endured this?
Well, the first journey, my family was still in shock,
Yeah.
having had a sibling pass away.
Mhm.
So I could understand that they were frightened and they really didn't want to think of the possibility that another sister was going to leave them.
Yes.
The second journey, they basically took turns coming up, to spend time with me.
Mhm.
And that was very good because what people don't realize is that healing doesn't begin after you have surgery, after you go through treatment, whether it's chemo or radiation. Healing begins that moment you receive that diagnosis, you have cancer. That's when the healing begins.
Mm.
And one of the other things I discovered was that healing is not just for you. Healing is for your caregivers. Healing is for the people who care about you. Healing is for the people who love you.
Yes. So important. And,
It is.
it brings you together and in a very special way. So, how
Mhm.
would you say your relationship was before the cancer diagnosis, both times, and then afterwards? What was the relationship with your family like? How did that change?
We were always very close. I think after our mom passed away, um, we realized how important, I should say, I constantly reminded them because I did little tributes to them,
Oh,
saying, how important we are to each other. All
yeah,
we have is each other now.
yeah.
We have to make sure that we're always there for
Mhm,
each other.
mhm.
I've come across families who don't even say, I love you
Yeah,
to the next person, and we got into a habit of saying that.
yes, yes. It's
We made
powerful.
sure that we knew
Hmm.
how the other one felt. We made sure that each other knew that we were important to each other.
Yeah. And that's so powerful when that happens because it really changes not only your emotions, but your family, your loved ones, friends,
It
whoever that
does.
might be on the receiving end of that. And then just to be able to say those words is changing in so many ways.
Mhm.
It affects your
It
health,
really
it
is.
affects their attitude. And then it's one of those things that is kind of like a giving
Yes.
seed. That seed is planted and then
Mhm.
it's watered and it grows
That's right.
because I have you seen where they received the love that you
Mhm.
gave and then they started to share it or reciprocate it to
Yes.
you?
And they did. I think with me, because I kept a positive attitude,
Mhm.
there were cases where a lot of people didn't even realize of what I was going through until I told them. Um, my sisters used to say to me that you've never met a stranger. I said, you're a stranger for maybe the first 60 seconds, if
Yeah.
that long. And then after that, as far as I'm concerned, with friends and family.
Yes.
Um, but let me just say that everybody doesn't have that luxury. There's a lot of people that go through cancer
Mm-hmm.
that have to deal with loved ones,
Mm-hmm.
friends turning their backs.
Yeah.
Everybody can't deal with you going through cancer.
Yeah.
I've had friends that were very close to me and dear to my heart tell me point blank, especially when I was going through it the second time, that I can't deal with you.
Mm.
I can't deal with this cancer thing. And what people don't realize is that that's major for a lot of cancer patients. Sometimes the husband walks out, sometimes the wife walks out, and people question, I can't see anybody walking away from someone because they're sick, but it happens. It's a reality. And it happens more than we actually realize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of times we don't even realize until it happens
Mm-hmm.
how we would react. You don't really know until it happens. The same as if someone actually does pass. You don't know how you're going to deal with it because it's not something that happens before and then you have the same experience every time. It's different every time, and
Yes,
every
it
person is different because you have a different relationship with each person.
That's right.
And so those are areas that really probably require a certain type of medication, maybe not physical, but a certain type of spiritual or, emotional counseling, something like that. So in your experience, since you've gone through this 2 times now and praise God have come out, you're able to tell your story and share your journey. What do you recommend to people and to families who are the persons giving the care? They're not the recipient of the, they're not on the receiving end of the treatment, but they are the ones who have to be the support system. What do you recommend to those people who may need to?
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Yeah.
There's a couple of things that come to mind.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes as caregivers, I believe they feel they're really helping.
Yeah.
But you have to be careful about some of the things that you say.
Mm.
Like on my journey, I started jotting down different things that people say. I said, I need to write a book. Never say this to a cancer patient.
Wow.
And one of the things is people will say to you, well, God never puts on you more than you can bear. It's in the Bible. I had that said to me so many times. The last person that said to me that, I said, where is it in the Bible?
Wow.
And he said, I don't know exactly where. I said, when you find it, can you call me and let me know? I knew it wasn't in the Bible. It sounds good, but that's not what he said.
Yeah.
The other thing is that if the patient is not feeling good, they don't need to hear you say, if you push yourself, you'll feel better. Why don't you get up? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? They're the patient. They know how they feel. Have positive thoughts for them. Sometimes it's better to just be with them and say absolutely nothing. Yeah. Because all we need to feel is your presence, to know that we're not going through this alone. That's more important. If you don't want to pray, just be silent.
Yeah.
That's worth more than anything that they could ever give a cancer patient.
Really important to say that silence is very powerful and can be very loud in its delivery and its meaning. And so what would you say is the best treatment or the best solution that someone provided you in this journey along those terms of being quiet or saying certain things? What's the best one that if you write that book would be on the column, this is what you should say or do?
I think back to a time when I was invited to speak to a group, Our Journey of Hope, that was connected to the Cancer Treatment Center is now called City of Hope.
Okay.
And it was a group of clergymen, which I didn't realize everybody was a clergyman except for me. And I remember there was a bishop that was present that came from this area, the Annapolis area where I live in Arundel County. And the one thing that I wanted them to understand, because I know that it's difficult for people to know what to say to you.
Sure.
And even sometimes your pastor, your bishop or whatever, it's difficult. And sometimes they might avoid you because they don't know what to say.
Yes.
But I felt like it was more important that they know you don't have to say anything. Just make me feel that you're there for me.
Yeah.
And I'm not traveling on this journey alone.
Yeah.
Knowing that you're not alone is so, so important.
Yeah. You remind me of a quote that says, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that's very important, because in your silence, we gain strength. In your silence, we gain the courage that we need. And in your silence, give us that extra boost that make us want to fight.
Yeah.
It gives us a reason for fighting.
Exactly. And fighting is exactly what you need to do, because this is definitely a fight like no other. Every situation different, every circumstance, and just so many things that happen unexpectedly, even after you've gotten a diagnosis. Some people have setbacks, some people have additional treatment that's needed, some things come up or get discovered or develop even during the process. And so for this second time for you, was this process longer for you?
I think a couple of months after having surgery. And if I might back up a little bit, because I don't want to forget this thought.
Okay.
When you said what's important, anybody on a cancer journey or any kind of journey need to be able to have someone there that's not afraid to say, God is a healer.
Okay.
That God is a way maker.
Yes.
And that God will deliver you. A lot of times they may not hear that.
Yes.
But that's what you need. You need to be surrounded by people who are not afraid to tell you the greatness and the goodness of God.
Yes. Yes. And
for me, even though I went through a second journey, it was like, I thought back, I'm like, God, if you brought me through that, then certainly you can bring me through this.
All right.
Because if you had, for me, it was like watching the enemy on the sideline rejoicing that I had to go through this a second time. And then having God say, hey, like tap you on your shoulder. Who's your reporter you're going to believe?
Yeah.
Mine's a this, because you're not all right.
Yes, Lord.
And I could just see that crushing the enemy. Because God stepped in to protect me. And that's what he does.
Yeah.
He protects those who trust him and believe in him and lean on him.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even after I went through, I decided to go ahead with a bilateral mastectomy, so I didn't have to hear those words again. You have cancer.
Yes. Yes.
But what happened to me, like 2.5 weeks after having this surgery, and they had decided I didn't need chemo, neither radiation, which was a big difference than my first. When I got that, what they thought I needed to do during the beginning of my second journey. If I had not done my own research and decided to get a second opinion, I would have probably just gone along with that. And God only knows what would have happened.
Yes.
But 2.5 weeks after returning home, I became ill. I don't know whether it was because, and people mean the best, someone had invited me to their home, said you need to get out the house. Even though I may have looked good on the outside, and I felt okay, but my insides wasn't really healed. I had just gone through a major surgery.
Yes.
So that was the greatest mistake that I made, was moving too fast.
Mm-hmm.
What happened was, I remember feeling kind of funny. I'm like, I feel strange just trying to breathe. Never had that before.
Okay.
And my sister was still here with me, my second sister, Faye. She was my caregiver during my second journey. And she said, call your doctor. God knows I had enough of doctors. I did not want to call a doctor to come to the hospital. I had enough of going and seeing the inside of a hospital. And I just wasn't prepared for that. And I said, okay. And she came back a little bit later. She said, did you call the doctor? And I said, no. Mm-hmm. She said, give me the number. So she called the doctor. My doctor wasn't there, but there was a doctor that was on duty, and she said to bring her in. So when I got there, she examined me. She said, I'm going to send you over next door to get an x-ray. And before they finished the x-ray, they came to me and they said, your doctor said you don't have to come back up, but she did prescribe a medication, so pick it up and start taking it immediately. But if you notice it's harder for you to still breathe, without any pain, or your temperature goes up, then I need you to go to the emergency room. So we got the medication. And when my sister came back to check on me, my temperature had gone up, but I didn't tell her. She said, what's your temperature? And I just said, it's okay. It's okay. And then when she came back, she asked me again, well, what's my temperature? I said, it's 102. So she said, well, we need to go to the hospital, to the emergency room. I said, no. I said, why don't we try ice packs and see if that will bring my temperature down? Mm-hmm. So they did. Just as fast as they put an ice pack on my body, the ice pack melted.
Oh, wow.
When we took my temperature, again, it was still going up.
Yeah. We
went to the emergency room, the first hospital, because I ended up going to 2 hospitals that night. Okay. I was there for about an hour, and they had never called me to the back. While I'm sitting there in a wheelchair, I hear God say, it's only by my mercy and by my grace you're going to get through this. My first thing was thinking, is he sending me to a mercy hospital or to a grace hospital? And I'm like, I've heard of a mercy hospital, but I don't think I've ever heard of a grace hospital. So I send my family up to find out, where is there a mercy or grace hospital close by? And the security guard said, mercy is right up the street, a couple of blocks away. So I asked them to roll me up to the desk. And when I get up to the desk, I'm like, take this bracelet off of me, because I shouldn't be here. And they said, no, we was getting ready to call you. And I said, no, you weren't. I said, all of these people was here before me, and you have not called one person. They're standing in the back like they're having a party, and you haven't called anybody. I said, plus people have come in after me that might have a more serious condition than I do. And I said, I shouldn't be here. I said, take it off. I said, I need to go somewhere else. So I left there, and we went to Mercy Hospital. And when they rolled me in, the young lady started taking my information. I remembered my name. When she got to, what is your address? I couldn't remember my address. She came around, took my temperature. She said, oh my God, my temperature had actually gone up to like almost 110. She snatched the pen out my hand, rolled me to the back. They immediately hooked me up, trying to get my temperature down. I had someone come and talk to me, and she said, you're going to have surgery. Well, I wasn't hearing that. I did not want to go through another surgery. And I remember just laying there crying, God, I don't want to go through this again. I just went through a major surgery. And the surgeon came in and he talked to me. He said, unfortunately, one of your breasts, you have pneumonia, one of your breasts have become infected and we have to remove it. Because what I failed to tell you, I had a bilateral mastectomy and I had reconstructive surgery at the same time because I didn't want to know what it felt like to be without breasts.
Yeah.
And you can understand how we women our breasts are important to us.
Yeah.
And he said, you're going to need this surgery. And I said, no. He came back to talk to me later. He said, Dr. Glatt and Dr. Reisner, which were my two surgeons at CTCA, want you to have this surgery because they want you to live. Well, that touched me in a profound way. I'm like, number one, it had to take him some time to find out who my actual doctors were. But he took the time to reach out to them in spite of what his conclusions were, and then to come back and tell me what they said. He said, Dr. Glatt and Dr. Reisner want you to have this surgery because they want you to live. That's all I needed to hear.
Powerful.
And when I heard them talking to my family and saying that if she doesn't have this surgery, which was going to require something like 2.5 hours, I'm thinking about the 5-hour surgery I just had a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
And they said, what we can do, we can put her in an ambulance and have the ambulance transport her back to Philadelphia. He said, but I doubt if she'd make it to the next day. That right there, I'm like, God, I knew you didn't bring me through all of this to just let me die right now. And when I decided I had to have the surgery, I was going to do the surgery. And when they put me in pre-op, and if you ever had any surgery, you know, when they put you in pre-op, you know, your family is not there, your prayer partner's not there, your pastor can't even go back there. It's just you and God.
Yeah.
And that's where I started calling God on every promise that I could remember. You know, I started reminding him, you know, hey, you said to look to the hills for which cometh my help, for my help cometh from the Lord. And I'm like, you said in the times of trouble that you would hide me in that secret place. Well, God knows I needed him to hide me because I knew I was. And right then I understood, because I heard so many times that you should keep the word embedded in your heart. Because there comes a time when you can't pull out that Bible. You can't have anybody else speak what you need spoken over you. You have to learn how to speak over your own self. You have to know how to get connected with God. And God doesn't remind you, he doesn't mind you reminding him of his promises to you. Because he's the kind of God that delights in knowing that you still need him.
Yeah. That's good.
You know, he's ready. He's there, available for when we call upon him. And that's something that we always have to remember. You know, I trusted him during the first journey. I had to call on the same God that I believed going through the second journey.
Yes, absolutely.
I had to believe that the things that he did for me to bring me through that first journey, he was going to do the same on my second journey. So I had no choice but to trust him.
And he delivered again.
Yes, he did.
Yeah. And so
he's a miracle working God.
He is. And I tell you, we are the better for it. We benefit because we have you here to share and encourage
Yes,
us in
that's right.
the journeys that everyone has to take, no matter what their situation may be. And so, as we are now on the other side of healing, and we have gone through the processes, you are also an author. You are a poet. You have been putting pen to paper even before your journey began. And so, were you able to do any writing at certain times when you were feeling strong enough to do anything?
Um, I think that for me, um, that was God's way of protecting me. He would drop things in my spirit to write, no matter how I was feeling,
Mm-hmm.
because when He has you occupied,
Yeah.
you can't think about, I'm in pain. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, you have to go,
Yeah.
because I got work to do right now.
Yeah.
Like, come back and see me later.
Yeah.
Maybe I can entertain you later, but right now, God has an assignment for me to do, and
Yeah.
I need to complete this assignment.
Yeah.
And how the portrait came about, I remember one day while I was working on my book that He dropped in my spirit to write,
Mm-hmm.
He gave me this poem, and I'm like, I don't even write poems. And I could hear Him say, well, you do now. So I've been writing poems ever since.
Oh, wow. Beautiful. And you've been able to share your poetry, I know, in many places, many spaces, church events, programs, and the demand continues for you to come and share the words that God allows you to pen to paper. And so the book now that we all have access to because it's available for purchase is Embracing in His Grace. And with that title, so profound, is an opportunity for you to share your journey and your experience. And so, what was it
Yes.
like writing the book after the journey had been completed? What was it like reliving some of the things that you had gone through? Was that
Um,
therapeutic in some way?
it was because when you're on a journey, it's like you don't realize how much you've been through.
Mm,
And writing that book, I was like, oh my God, I didn't realize how much I had actually been through
mm,
until I had to relive it writing this book.
yeah.
And writing it helped me understand why He needed me to write it.
Mm,
It helped me during my journey, but I think the purpose was to inspire someone else that's going through,
yeah.
to encourage them to, trust God.
Mm-hmm.
Because I'm going to say this: we as Christians, the first thing that happens to us, we want to fall apart.
Mm,
Now, that's something that we expect the world to do because the world is watching us to see how we react to the adversities and the obstacles that come our way.
yeah.
So that's why I say it's so important that you continue to trust God. And I want someone that's reading this book to see the manifestation of the glory of God
Yes.
through what I went through,
Mm-hmm.
to see the benefits of why it's so important to trust God. My favorite thing is allowing God to see and to know that He can trust you with the life that He's given you.
Well, that is exciting. I am thrilled for you because any victory for one person is a victory for someone else, especially, for those of us that believe and we
Yes.
know where the source is of your strength.
Mhm.
And so
Yes.
it's definitely a pleasure to hear your story, your journey, to share it with others, and to celebrate you during this Women's History Month, because you're making history just like everyone else by making great contributions to your community and to the world and to wherever you go. We know that the message will be within you and that you are the message. You reflect it. And so you're looking as healthy as anyone. And
Feel
so
great.
It is a blessing to be able to say that, to see you, and to know that it's all to the glory of God that He has given you this opportunity. So, what final words would you have as encouragement to someone who may need to know what to face or what to do if they have to face this journey?
If you ever hear the words, I have cancer, please go get a second, a third, and even a fourth if you have to. And you know when you've reached the best decision on what the next step is, because you'll feel it in your spirit, you'll feel it in your heart. But never think that you can go through cancer alone. I'll say it, if I have to say it 50 million times, cancer is not I can do it by myself disease.
Yeah.
You need someone else to remind you of the healing powers of God.
Mm-hmm.
You need someone to let you know, and that's not afraid to say, wherever you are, God is with you. All you got to do is trust Him.
Yeah.
You need that on a journey.
Yeah. Of course, everyone, you can purchase her book, Embracing in His Grace, and know that His grace will carry you through whatever your situation is. So we have a witness right here, and
yes, an
example of what can happen when you do put your trust in Him. So PAM SHERBIA, I want to say thank you again so much for joining me and being a part of this conversation, and for just bringing some light to so many of us. We appreciate you. We celebrate you, and we look forward to another time when we can talk about all the good things that are going on with you.
Thank you, Lisa. This has been a blessing. Thank you.
All right. Well, everyone, until the next time, remember to keep shining, continue to be encouraging, continue to remember that you are full of impact, motivation, and encouragement. And this is Meaningful Conversations with yours truly, Singinlisa. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and share this with someone else who can benefit from all of the good news you heard today. Until next time, be blessed.